We're family-owned and Columbus is our home, just like it's yours.
We love our community and we love working to give you, our neighbors, dream homes. There's only one Simple Bath and Kitchen, and it's right here in Columbus.
That's right. No franchises or corporate offices. Real people, real service, real care for your home.
Don't settle for less. Swing by Simple Bath and Kitchen today, and we'll walk you around our showroom so you can start to reimagine your own space.
Simple Bath and Kitchen, where our home is your home.
Hi, this is Tim Dye with Upward Home Solutions. If you've been thinking about selling your home, this is the most important message you'll hear since before the pandemic. As you may know, we are the number one home buyer in Columbus. We recently launched a new program that is getting our sellers thousands more for their home. Our customers love it. It's still as easy as ever with absolutely no commissions or fees, just more money in your pocket. To find out more, visit us at 614houses.com. Upward Home Solutions, number one in Columbus home buyers.
Get everything you need for your roofing or siding project at Menards.
Miss
Aluminum soap that helps keep your attic cool and adds the perfect accent to your home's exterior. Low maintenance. Pre-finished panels are stocked in white, brown, and black. Ready to take home today. Shop all our building materials products in-store or on Menards.com. And check out all of our great deals going on now at Menards.
Save big money at Menards.
Are you struggling to climb stairs? Don't let it get you down. This is Melinda with Columbus Mobility Specialists. Our stairlift systems give you the confidence to move around your home safely and independently. Our comfortable, quiet systems are tailored to fit your home and lifestyle. Get a free estimate by calling 614-825-8996. That's 614-825-8996 or visit columbusmobility.com. Get back to living your life with Columbus Mobility Specialists.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Your station for news, traffic, and weather in Central Ohio. News Radio 610 WTVN Columbus. WODC HD2 Asheville. An iHeartRadio station.
I'm Michelle Franzen. The campaign trail winds through the battleground state of Pennsylvania this weekend. Former President Trump holding a rally today. Earlier this week, Trump detailed his economic plan and criticized rival Kamala Harris for her economic agenda. ABC News contributing political correspondent Rachel Bade says some Trump supporters want him to stop the personal attacks, too.
I've caught up with a number of Trump insiders this week who were really pushing back on this notion they were hearing from other Republicans that he needs to even talk policy at all. They said, let the guy be himself. It worked in 2016. By the way, it didn't work in 2020. But they're saying even negative press at this point is good press because they're fighting for relevancy that hard.
Harris and her running mate Tim Walz kicking off a bus tour in Pennsylvania.
Hello, Miss Ella.
The Democratic National Convention next week in Chicago. Harris detailed her economic vision Friday. ABC's Jay O'Brien with more.
Harris's ambitious agenda, much of which would have to be cleared by Congress, calling for a federal ban on price gouging of groceries. Up to $25,000 in down payment assistance for first-time home buyers, a tax credit of up to $6,000 for families with a newborn, and capping the cost of insulin at $35 and other out-of-pocket prescription drug expenses at $2,000.
There is some renewed hope of finalizing a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal in the latest round of brokered talks. Mediators will reconvene in Cairo next week. ABC's Tom Soufi-Burridge is in Tel Aviv with more.
Secretary of State Blinken is due to arrive here in Israel tomorrow to try and close out that ceasefire agreement. Overnight, President Biden warning all players in this region not to do anything that could undermine those negotiations at this critical time.
Hurricane Ernesto delivering a punch to Bermuda, the massive storm moving over the island at a snail's pace, knocking out power and bringing storm surge. Riptide warnings posted up and down the U.S. East Coast. You're listening to ABC News.
An hours-long SWAT standoff in Miamisburg near Dayton ended up with a suspect in custody.
Hello, Miss L.
It began early Friday afternoon when the man refused to stop for an Ohio State trooper in Warren County. Police said the suspect led multiple agencies on a chase, which came to an abrupt stop when the suspect hit a train near the Great Miami River in Miamisburg. But the man refused to exit the vehicle. Police arrested him several hours later, around 6:30 p.m., and took him to the hospital. The suspect's identity has not yet been released. A Franklin County sheriff fires a deputy indicted on 32 rape charges. Thursday, Sheriff Dallas Baldwin announced the termination of Deputy Charles Davis after an administrative hearing. This comes 2 weeks after Davis was indicted on 58 charges, including 32 counts of rape. The Franklin County Sheriff's Office learned of an external investigation by the Bureau of Criminal Investigation.
I mean, what's our normal
Davis
one?
was arrested in Ross County on July 31st, facing charges including abuse
You can
against
fade it
a
out
victim
after
under 13
20
years
seconds,
of
25
age.
seconds or whatever.
Baldwin
That's fine.
said terminating
And then I'm going
Davis
to go
was
right
necessary
into the
due to
monologue. It's
severity
long.
of
I
the
think I better put it here instead.
Linden
And at the end
Township
of it, I'll
police
say
officer
something
Connor
like,
Grubb is now free after posting bond following his indictment on
I had
four
stuff to say.
murder
I've been
counts
gone for
for
2 weeks.
last
Come on.
year's shooting death of Takaya Young in the
Did you
parking
miss me?
lot
Did you miss me?
of
Did
the
you miss me?
Kroger store on Sunbury Road. Grubb entered a plea of not guilty in his arraignment Wednesday. U.S. Marshals have arrested a man wanted since mid-June. Quintel Bagley has been on the run since he allegedly got away from Grove City
I don't know
Police
who.
following
JC's
his arrest
calling
for
and Brian's
kidnapping
calling.
his
I got no one here with me
ex-girlfriend
today.
June
So
13th. Police say he tried to kidnap the same woman again in Columbus earlier this month. He was caught in Lima, Ohio, and is now in the Allen County Jail. Since Bagley's escape in June, 2 Grove City officers
do you like the intro?
after an internal investigation.
Yeah, it's just really long.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I mean, I don't intend it to be that long.
News,
But,
traffic, and weather.
If you're not informed, then you're out of the loop.
yeah,
All
fade
you
it
have
out,
to do
and
is
so we don't cut
Play
it too much time. And then,
610
if you can't send that
on
email,
iHeartRadio.
I did already.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's $1 small frosty deal. Get ready to cool down this summer with the ultimate treat. This delectable dessert is too thick for a straw, but just right for a fry. Is it a milkshake? Is it ice cream? Neither. It's a frosty. Come taste your favorite small frosty flavor for just $1. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's.
If only I could get a great deal on the new Jeep.
Your wish is my command. 0% financing for 36 months on all new Jeeps.
Jeep Genie? You're real?
As real as these deals. And if you mention me, you get a 96-month, 125,000-mile extended warranty on Wranglers, Hornets, and Pacificas this August.
Looks like I'm getting my wish.
For magic deals and more, visit whitesidecars.com, where your satisfaction always comes first.
This is Greg Trzynski from the Original Mattress Factory. Parents, before you buy your student's mattress online, consider this. At OMF, we offer the same convenience, but with major advantages. You can actually try our mattresses before buying, crucial for your student's comfort. You'll know exactly where your mattress comes from, right here in our local factory. By supporting the Original Mattress Factory, you're investing in our community. And here's the kicker. You'll pay less than you would online. Quality sleep, local support, and better prices. OriginalMattress.com.
Live from LAPD Firearms Range and Training Facility, this
do you have rules where you work? You know, guidelines on how to do your job and boundaries you must stay between while doing that job. Now, most of those I would assume are more or less company policies. Policies that under the right circumstances may have exceptions to the rule that you may or may not have the ability to deviate from if it benefits the company. And for the most part, those rules stay the same, or if they change, you may get an email to introduce the new guidelines. In law enforcement, we have rules and guidelines we must follow as well, and many of the day-to-day mundane tasks are covered by departmental directives or what is known as standard operating procedures. These are relatively straightforward and, like in any business, serve as a guideline to how you handle many situations. There is, though, one other part that is never talked about in the naive media, and that is the standard which all law enforcement officers must follow to protect the rights of citizens of this country as laid out under the Constitution. Police officers arguably have the most difficult job in the world, not because they face obvious dangers around any corner, but because they have to navigate those dangers while protecting the rights of the crook, the criminal, the bad guy, the murderer. Now you may be thinking, it can't be that bad, right? The First Amendment, the right of free speech, the right to express ourselves. But wait, what happens when that citizen has their phone out recording an arrest on the side of the road? Is that protected? But is it still okay if they're recording a lifeless body at a murder scene to post on social media? The Second Amendment protects our rights to keep and bear arms, but just in the last 4 years alone, courts have said we no longer need a permit to carry concealed in Ohio. Well, that doesn't apply to a rifle, and that doesn't apply to school zones. That all doesn't count, but are you okay if you have a valid CHL license in those areas? Wait a second. Can a resident of Indiana come here and carry a concealed license, without a concealed license? And if you're a juvenile, let's say 16 years old, walking down the street with an open carry pistol, is that illegal? Surprise, most of the time that is perfectly legal, by the way. You start to see why it is extremely difficult for an officer on the street to keep up with every court decision or new law that is binding. Case laws have to be abided by because of some prior case setting precedents for, let's say, arresting someone or detaining someone, for entering into a home without a warrant, or for dealing with a car you stopped that smells like marijuana, but oh, wait a second, that's legal now, but you can't be under the influence of it when you're driving, and you may be able to search that car if it smells like burnt marijuana, but if it's not burnt and it's fresh, you can't search it. Being in law enforcement and protecting the rights of the citizens is done so not by some loosely written procedure. Officers are bound by laws, ever-changing laws in court cases. 2,300 decisions last year alone in Ohio district courts that can all have an impact on how they conduct themselves while protecting society. The reason I spent this time laying this groundwork is to show how easy it is for officers to react in good faith, but end up next year in State versus Delbert. Now, when these cases make its way all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, these cases garner a lot of attention and are binding to everyone in the country. Some of the most famous ones that are ingrained into officers from the first days in the academy through their 30th year in this profession are ones such as Terry v. Ohio in 1968 that gave guidance to officers being able to briefly detain someone if they have reasonable suspicion that a crime was committed. Or the 1985 case of Tennessee v. Gardner, which stated that under the Fourth Amendment prohibiting unreasonable search and seizure, officers can no longer use deadly force in attempting to stop a fleeing felon, unless that person is believed to pose a threat of serious physical harm to others. A split-second decision officers must calculate when chasing a juvenile running from a stolen vehicle with a gun in his waistband, or a juvenile running from a stolen vehicle with a gun in hand firing at passing motorists, or a juvenile running from a stolen vehicle with a gun in his hand down at his side. Could you make that decision in 3 seconds or less? Keep in mind, a decision with outcomes that are life-changing, that will be judged from the comfort of an office or a courtroom. These decisions are relatively easy versus the hundreds of case laws that must be followed in order to ensure the rapist or the child molester you just arrested are kept behind bars, or they get let out because you violated their rights in your initial detention of them, even though they're still a molester or a rapist. In 1989, a Supreme Court case was decided out of an incident in North Carolina that has become the basis for how we judge any incident in which force was used by an officer. This is not a suggestion. This is not something you can pull in and out to help or hurt a case. It is a Supreme Court ruling that every attorney, judge, and law enforcement officer is bound to follow, unless case law, of course, changes it in the future. The ruling says this: an analysis of excessive force claim, and excessive force can be aggressively handcuffing someone all the way up to the use of deadly force. An analysis should consider whether the search or seizure was objectively reasonable based on how a reasonable police officer would have handled that same situation. The reasonableness of a particular use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene rather than with 20/20 vision of hindsight. The calculus of reasonableness must allow for the fact that police officers are often forced to make split-second judgments in circumstances that are tense, uncertain and rapidly evolving about the amount of force that is necessary in a particular situation. The reasonableness inquiry in an excessive force case is an objective one. The question is whether the officer's actions are objectively reasonable in light of the facts and circumstances confronting them without regard to the underlying intent or motivation. Those are the words. Those are the written words from the court that we are bound to follow. What would a reasonable officer in that same situation do if it had happened to them? A lifelong criminal pulls what looks to be a firearm from their waistband, points it at the officer, who uses deadly force to protect themselves, only to find out later it was a water gun. The officer can be protected under Graham v. Connor if the objectively reasonableness clause is met. The general public, the protester on the street, the media do not realize that officers do not work in a vacuum of doing whatever the heck they want to do. They are sworn to protect the rights of citizens, and that means we have to follow these case laws. It's not a suggestion or policy that changes overnight. The reason I spent so much time today on this is because Graham v. Connor seems to be grossly overlooked as of late in our own city. Last week, a Blendon Township officer was indicted on murder charges after a thug suspect, who had just stolen up to 11 bottles of alcohol from a store with accomplices, previously had backed into a handicapped spot and intentionally had no visible tags on the vehicle, defied 12 lawful commands to exit her vehicle, and who attempted to murder or impose serious physical harm by hitting the officer with her vehicle, hitting him enough that his feet are off the ground. He, being certainly in fear for his life, had to make a split-second decision to use force to stop her actions, who is now charged with murder. What would a reasonable officer in that same position have done? And what lie was told to the grand jury to get that indictment? Guys, at what point do we start holding the citizens of our community liable for their actions? Certainly, this was a tragedy that was avoidable. It would never have happened if Mrs. Young and the two accomplices did not steal 11 bottles of alcohol from a business. It would never have happened if Mrs. Young would have complied with a multiple lawful orders from the officers. It would never have happened if Mrs. Young did not attempt to harm or kill Officer Grubb with a 2,000-pound vehicle. Mrs. Young, unfortunately, is responsible for what happened that day. Her actions put those events into motion, period. If you want to see this city survive, we have to stand up and be as outraged as these opportunistic lawyers are. Mrs. Young did not die for stealing bottles of liquor. Mrs. Young did not die because she stole bottles of liquor. She unfortunately died after force was used against her to stop her actions that could have seriously harmed or killed a law enforcement officer in our community. Did that officer deserve to die because she decided to break multiple laws that day? The indictment of Officer Grubb should have all of us outraged, and the continual encouragement by a segment of our population who are telling their youth to not comply with authority should have us furious. Being a lawful, respectable contributor to society is really easy. We can fix these communities with one line. If you comply, there's a 99% chance you will not die. It's simple. The overwhelming majority of deaths caused by law enforcement after use of force is due to non-compliance. That's why in my neighborhood, there is almost a 0% chance of death or serious harm at the hands of an officer. We teach our kids to be respectful, to be law-abiding, to respect authority. We teach them that if you comply, you will get your day in court. How about that? Welcome to the new City of Columbus. Andrew Ginther, Mayor. Gary Tyak, Prosecutor. It's time we stood up and fought for those who protect us. OnTarget will be back after this break.
can get it on my phone. I can get it on the computer.
All over the place. Smartphones, laptops, desktops, smart TV.
Trump said, you've been there almost 4 years. That's going to be able to fix it already.
30 seconds.
I copy. Your ABC 6 First Warning weather today. Sun and clouds, scattered rain showers are likely with some thunderstorms, high of 87. Tonight, scattered rain showers and thunderstorms continue to be likely. Mostly cloudy skies, though, low of 66. Sunday, mostly cloudy skies, scattered rain and thunderstorms, again, high of 80. Currently 84 degrees on your severe weather station. News Radio 610, WTVN.
News headlines and interesting talk. News Radio 610 WTVN.
Welcome back to On Target. If you didn't catch it, we're broadcasting live from the studios of LAPD Firearms and Range. That's at 999 Bethel Road. I'm your host, Eric. I got JC on the live line. I got Ella in the studio. Got a guest coming up soon. Our good friend, FOP President, and CPD Lieutenant Brian Steele's coming up with us soon. JC, are you there?
I am here. Excellent monologue today, and I just wish you and I talked about this. You know, it's got to be citizens' responsibility here sometime. It just can't be blame the police. You know, this is,
John,
obey the law, nothing will happen. There you go.
And John, and Brian's going to talk about this here shortly, but do you know, people don't know the impact. You know, they read in a headline, they go on about their day. They don't realize the impact that has on every officer on the street. It gets to a point when you say, why should I show up? Why should I go enforce the law? Because if I do that and I'm faced with a situation where I need to protect myself or others, we're talking about a serious situation here. This isn't even this is pretty cut and dry that my whole career can be done, my family. Why? You can't pay these men and women enough to do their job correctly in this environment. And this can be changed, and it's an environment that has been directly related to the leaders in this city. And that's what's most frustrating.
Amen.
Yep. JC, well, I don't want to spend time on other stuff. I know we have a lot of news to get to. So I know you and I talked about a bunch of stuff going on. What do you got for us?
Oh, there's a lot of things going on out there. A couple of things are good. The Ninth Circuit Court here recently, just this week, actually gave some pushback against California. As we know, California just pulls laws up out of their hind end all the time. The sad thing about this is this law passed in 2020. That's like 4 years ago. And they decided that, you know what, you should only be able to buy one gun a month, period, no matter what. You could have a family that needs protected. You may want to buy, some gifts for your twin sons, whatever. Nope. One gun a month, and that is what they determined it should be. And, of course, there's a lot of pushback, but it took until now, 4 years later, that it finally elevated itself to the Ninth Circuit Court, which basically put a permanent injunction on this ridiculous idea that you can only buy one per month. And why do we talk about it? It's California. We all know. Hey, we can do it too. We may lose, but hey, for 4 years, we can stop people. And that is my, concern about this. What I did like about the Ninth Circuit, which has not been our friend, they have supported a lot of the post-Bruin decision anti-gun rulings out there. But when they, on this particular case, what I liked about it was they were elevating the Second Amendment to the First Amendment, the Third, Fourth, Fifth. They said, it's this equal importance. And as they were presenting the case, the Deputy of Attorney General for California is presenting his case, saying, well, this law just says when you can own a gun, not if you can do it. And the judges were not buying that. They said, okay, so let's compare it to this. He goes, would it be absurd to think that the government could say you can only buy one book per month because we want to make sure you really understand the book that you read? Or you can only attend one protest a month because, there's some societal drawbacks to attending protests. We just kind of want to space those out. So they were equating it with the rest of the amendments and just saying how foolish it would be. Or if a liquor store owner could only buy one gun a month, but he had a gang that was threatening him in his business, and they knew where he lived, and they were threatening him in his home, but yet it would take 2 months for him to be able to protect himself. So bottom line is they did a permanent injunction now against this. The sad news is this was in effect for 4 years until we got that. So this is just part of the scheme, and if this administration gets in, that's out of nowhere the most liberal senator in all of United States history, I believe, Kamala Harris, and this Yahoo that she picked up for vice president. It just seems that their main agenda would be to disarm the United States. So
DC, they say it. It's no longer hidden behind. No. Is that what she meant? We have an audio clip that we'll play in the fourth segment of, in her own words, every gun owner should listen to that. If the Second Amendment is important to you, if protecting your family and owning firearms is important, you should hear her in her own words, and let that be a partial judge on who you're voting for. Jeez,
you cannot vote for her if you believe in that freedom, in that right, and in the Second Amendment, in the Constitution. You believe in the Constitution, you just can't vote for her. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Here's another news story I thought was kind of interesting because, hey, Texas AG says this is the way that it is. Well, Texas has a huge state fair. It lasts for 24 days. And this year, for the first time, the people who are running the state fair on Texas state grounds said that no firearms will be allowed in at all, period. And the AG for Texas goes, wait a minute, we have a law that says if you have a license to carry anywhere on Texas state property, you have the right to carry. And they seem to have just decided that, that's the way it used to be, but the people running the fair say, no, we're going to put a weapons detection technology in, and we're not going to let anybody in. So on Wednesday, Attorney General Ken Paxton of Texas wrote a letter to the fair saying, if you don't fix this problem in 2 weeks, we are going to sue you and charge you thousands of dollars a day, every day, until you get it right, because it truly violates the law. And it's nice to have an Attorney General. We have Dave Yost, who's absolutely fantastic, and it's nice that Texas has one, too, that's saying, no, you got to follow the law, and that is the way that it is. So that's a good thing.
Good.
Here's one talking about, I think this was, you and I talked about this, and I think this shows you where things are going. So the East Coast and the West Coast has become this just whole harboring for anti-gun, disarm America states, and Washington, especially after the George Floyd, where everyone took over Seattle, and they just said, no, we need to defund the police. We need to get rid of them. That's what we need to do. We need to make things safe, and the police aren't safe. Well, now citizens carrying guns in the state of Washington spiked at above 700,000 concealed carry permits now. And why? Because they're concerned over public safety. so that for the first time in history, I think it was over 701,000 concealed license permits have now been issued. And the reason is crime is starting to become rampant. So what are the police doing about it? Well, guess what? According to the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, that the state of Washington's crime rates are rising up, but the fact is that the state of Washington is dead last among the 50 states in the number of commissioned police officers and sheriff deputies per 1,000 residents. So, crime spiking. They have less police due to their policies than any other state in the union. Wow. So what's happening? The citizens are having to defend themselves. So this is just goes to show you where we are headed. And you defund the police, take them off the streets. We've seen about the stops in Columbus's, and we talked about that. How much that they're down and how much crime has been up because they're just not pulling people over anymore. And why would they? They're just going to be on the bad end of it. The police are. It seems to be a target for the judges and prosecutors versus criminals, and this is what you get when you have that.
So you see, we got about a minute and a half here. Talk about, on a little bit of, I guess, positive news, July NICS numbers.
Oh, this is kind of a big story. All right, so July, and we knew this was coming, but July gun sales were once again over 1 million for the month of July. Now, why is that significant? This makes the 60th month in a row where gun sales have been over 1 million months. That's 5 years in a row, every single month. So that doesn't mean there were just 60 million at 1 million a month for 5 years for 60 months. No, during that period of time, nearly 68 million firearms have been sold and have been checked through the NICS systems. That's the National Criminal Background Check System. Averages over 17.3 million firearms per year. And they filtered out used guns out of this, guns that are already in this system. So these are new firearms, and that is absolutely horrendous. The greatest year of all, of course, was the 2020 with the pandemic. 21 million firearm sales alone occurred that 1 year.
Wow.
So what's the estimates now? With all of these, there's over 22 million people became new firearms owners in 2020. But get this, the best estimate of private stock of firearms in the United States, because of the July sales here, now puts it at over 510 million privately owned firearms. And those are only firearms that have been produced since the year 1900. Anything older than that's not even fitted in here. So over 510 million. So people are out there, and if these people will vote, we will have a chance to overcome these lies and protect our Second Amendment freedoms.
Wow. JC, let's jump to the bottom of the other news. When we come back on the other side, we're going to talk to our good friend, Lieutenant and FOP President Brian Steele. We're OnTarget, broadcasting live from the studios of LEPD Firearms Range. We'll be back right after the news.
Central Ohio is rapidly growing.
30 seconds.
Copy. And he shoots.
Range and training facility. This is OnTarget, the latest from the firearms industry, the products and politics that affect your hobby and liberty. This program may not be politically correct, but it is OnTarget. Now, your host, Eric Delbert.
Well, welcome back to OnTarget. I'm your host, Eric, joined today in the LAPD studio. I got JC on the live line, and I got my other very good friend on the line. I'm going to go right to him. It is Lieutenant Brian Steele, President of FOP Lodge number 9. How you doing, Brian? Yep, you there, Brian?
Yes.
All right, how you doing today?
Great, thanks for having me.
You know, I leave for 2 weeks, and I come back, and it's like the city's upside down.
Yeah, listen, this is just another day in Columbus, apparently.
Oh, geez. So, Brian, I wanted to bring you on because there's so many things going on right now. We talked about it in the opening monologue with this indictment of the Blendon Township officer. We had a DOJ report come out this week. Let's talk a little bit about the indictment. What's your thought on that? I mean, you are in touch with the men and women who are working the streets every day. How is that being perceived out there?
Listen, it's a horrific miscarriage of justice. It's as easy as that. Our legal system depends on unbiased and fair prosecutorial practices. Bringing in a special prosecutor who's nothing more than an outside hack to have an indictment is a sham. And this is common post-2020. This is not the first officer this has happened to. These politically driven charges simply undermine public trust, and we at the FOP are always going to advocate for the truth and the facts.
What is and I honestly don't know. Why would you bring in a special prosecutor? I mean, don't we have people here that are sensible? And I mean, what is the purpose of bringing in a special prosecutor?
It's a way to wash your hands of it. It's a way for the prosecutor to say, oh, we step back, we brought in a special prosecutor. No matter what happens, they could say, oh, this wasn't our guy. It was simply a hired gun. Here's the facts, Eric. Miss Young should be alive. There is no doubt about that. Her death is a tragedy. The death that's a child inside her, tragedy. But here's another fact. Miss Young chose to be a thief, a career thief. Miss Young chose to disobey the lawful orders of the officers, and Miss Young chose to strike an officer with a vehicle. This notion that she was driving away, she didn't mean to do it, is nonsense. The officer's feet were literally off the ground. He had a split-second decision to save his life and lives of others, and he did.
So, Brian, you look at the video, and I've watched it numerous times, as did, I'm sure, most people. If the argument is maybe the officer shouldn't have been standing where he was, what's your thoughts?
So I'm glad. And now when we're talking about should he have stood there, we're talking about tactics, we're talking about policy. And this is going to be a two-part we're going to talk about. We don't look through the lens of tactics. We look through the Supreme Court case, Graham versus Connor. Was the use of force objectively reasonable? And that's important. The courts are going to look at what was the severity of the crime. It was not stealing alcohol. It was feloniously assaulting a police officer. They're going to look at the immediacy of its threat. The officer was literally on the hood of the car with both feet off the ground, and was Miss Young trying to resist and flee? Yes, she was. For the critics of standing in front of the car, we could argue that all day long. One of two things could be true. Either Miss Young was absolutely no threat at all to anybody, as some are saying, therefore it's not a reasonable stand in front of a car, or she is such a threat to officers and others that he never should have stood in front of the car. We cannot have it both ways. Standing in front of the car, removing his firearm, the officer is always looking at the backdrop. If he stood on the driver's side, he's now flagging his weapon towards the Kroger employee who reported the crime. If he stands on the passenger side, he's now pointing his weapon to his partner. He can't stand behind the car because now he can't see anything that's going on. In this case, in front of the car, in this scenario, tactically, I don't think he had any other option.
So now, I mean, you look at this, and you might stand back and say, okay, it will play out in court. Graham versus Connor will come into play. It will play out in court. But we've seen it time and time again with Deputy Meade and Coy and Anderson that it basically is a death sentence for their career. And that's just incredible. I mean, to the impact that even when they are found not guilty, the impact that it has on their life and their career. What does this do for the officer on the street day to day?
Well, an officer in Franklin County, it makes you not want to work to Franklin County. So you got to remember, we just had an article in the Dispatch yesterday from a prosecutor from Marion County who basically, in his professional opinion, that this never should have been indicted in the first place. So officers are thinking to themselves, do I work in this county where it's literally a death sentence to do police work, or do I go to another county where you're more supported? Voting matters. Who you put in office matters. If you want stuff like this to continue to happen, keep voting for the people you're voting for. If you want a law and order county, then maybe follow suit. Delaware, Marion, some of the counties who seem to have it together. And if you look, crime is nowhere near the same in those counties as this county.
And it affects the officer on the street. When you talk to them, and I know you do all the time, it changes their behavior not in a good way. I mean, we want to go out there and enforce laws and protect the citizens of this city. But when you have situations like this where the officers say, look, that guy, he looks like he did everything right, and this is what happened, why the heck am I going to put myself in that position? And that's a attitude that we don't want. I mean, that doesn't lend itself to a safe city environment.
No, it erodes public trust and law and order. Look, our officers have to know they're going to go in a situation and they're going to have to do their job and they're going to come out of it. And we've said this time and time again, and you're a lawman yourself. We will die for this community. We will die, put our lives on the line, and literally die because people are worth it. But when you start looking at you're going to prison for doing your job, it's why we're in the situation we are today. It's why recruiting is at an all-time low. It's why people are leaving faster than any other profession. All these things can be changed, though, if we just put the right people in office that continue to support the officers.
And another thing, too, and we're talking to Lieutenant Brian Steele of CPD FOP President, Lies number 9. The other thing, too, Brian, is that these attorneys, and I don't know this, you know, all I do is see what I read in the paper and so forth, but the attorneys for these families, they seem so opportunistic. I mean, out there spewing rhetoric that is not fact-based. You know, oh, she shouldn't have died for stealing a bottle of liquor. No, she didn't die for stealing a bottle of liquor. I mean, do you see that as well, that these attorneys are money-driven and don't have the true benefit of the family in mind?
Without doubt, this is a business. These are vultures and it's scavengers, and it's money-grubbing attorneys. Look at how many people of color in this city are shot and killed every day. I don't see a single one of these attorneys coming out and speaking about injustices. But if it's a police officer or sheriff's officer, they know that the government has deep pockets, and they're going to simply try to align their pockets. These attorneys do not care one bit about Miss Young and her family, and that's what's most sickening about it. It's a for-profit business.
Shifting gears a little bit, Brian, the DOJ came out with some recommendations this week. Anything of significance in those reports?
Yeah, I'm still going through it. Listen, the DOJ came in and they found what every other single person found. Baker Hostetler and IG's office, Internal Affairs, they found that 99.9% of the time, Columbus police officers do it right. And I've said it from day one. If misconduct is not there, you're going to find it. If misconduct is there, you're not going to hide it. Our officers do an outstanding job. Some of these recommendations are kind of funny. Some bean counter Fed down in D.C., he's suggesting that maybe instead of the language we currently have that says an officer will not desist from his official duties because someone's offering resistance, they're suggesting we put some language like tactical retreat. So think about that. Your 90-year-old grandmother is being raped and about to be killed, and this suspect, right, the scavenger suspect, is resisting the officer. Perhaps we should retreat and let him complete his crime. It's ridiculous. Our job is to go in there. You decide whether you want to resist or not. Either way, we are taking you to the jail. Either way, and we are going to use force if we have to.
That's incredible to suggest that we retreat. And I mean, what does that lead to in a society? I mean, seriously, retreat if the people resist? That's incredible.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. That is not our job. Our job is to provide a service. One of those services is enforcing laws and bringing people to justice. And again, I've said from day one, you come peacefully, we take you peacefully. It's not a problem whatsoever. We want you to comply. Always, always comply. Every one of these situations we're talking about where an officer used force, up to deadly force, the common denominator is the person resisted and did not comply.
Long are the days where you say you'll have your day in court in some of these areas, I'll tell you. JC, you have anything?
No, I have such respect for what Bob Steele does and what our officers do. And, the fact is, this is who they want to blame. And you can't help but look at the percentages. Who is committing these crimes? And we talked about that again last night, Eric. And when you see the percentages, it just seems to be, just statistically, a certain segment of our population, and we're just not addressing it. This crime seems to keep on going, and you want to blame police for their interaction and trying to protect themselves and the society, yet it just paints this horrible picture, which is kind of what we read into in our news story about the state of Washington, with the least number of officers of any per thousand per any state in the union. And guess what? Crime is rampant. How do you like that? This is what we're faced with. How do we make this turnaround? And again, it's through elections. You've got to elect good people, and this year's probably the biggest year of all. I know we said it year after year, but this is just a fact. If you look at what a new administration could do as far as harming our police, harming our citizens, it's very, very, very scary. So, but my hat's off to Lieutenant Steele. I just really appreciate the fact he's not a desk sitter. He's out there working the shifts, working with the people, and we're very proud to have him as the head of our FOP. So thanks for what you do, Brian.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, I will let you go. Brian, I'm always appreciative of you taking time out of your Saturday. I know you are extremely busy, and that family time is important. But thank you so much. Stop back anytime. Let us know what the pulse is on the street with our men and women in law enforcement, and continue to be safe out there.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm working the street today, 3 to 11. If you need anything, give me a call.
Hey, can we call you personally? Is that? I mean, I can give out your cell. Is that not good?
Not a problem. Not a problem. Listen, when the criminals ain't keeping it real, call Brian Steele. I'm going to use that as my next line for
I like that. We could have that printed up.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks. Lieutenant Brian Steele, FOP Lodge number 9 president, good friend of the show, good friend of the family. Guys, let's jump to a break. When we come back on the other side, JC, I know, has a little bit more news, and there's a couple exciting things happening right here at the store, some new products that are coming out, and some new items for sale. We're on Target, broadcasting live from the studios of LAPD Firearms Range. We'll be back right after the break.
The Power Hour with Chuck Douglas.
So, school has started or is about to start for many of our young people, and I've got a question for you. Maybe this is just my school system. Are you okay buying supplies that the other
Your ABC 6, that's okay, I got it here. Your ABC 6 first warning weather today, sun and clouds, scattered rain showers and thunderstorms, high of 87. Tonight, scattered rain showers and thunderstorms, once again, mostly cloudy skies throughout the night, low of 66. Sunday, mostly cloudy skies, it's the same thing every day, guys. Scattered rain showers and thunderstorms, high of 80. Currently, 84 degrees on your Severe Weather Station News Radio 610 WTVN.
Traffic, weather, and interesting talk. News Radio 610 WTVN.
Welcome back to On Target. I'm your host, Eric, joined today in the LAPD studios. It's just JC and me. Actually, JC's on the live line. Always good to hear your voice, JC. I kind of missed you over those couple weeks.
Well, I've missed you, too. I really have. Welcome back. I want to get to talk to you and hear more about the tales that you had. But you said it was a very, very safe travels. It's amazing. You leave the United States, and all of a sudden, hey, it's safe out there. But around here, it's a little different sometimes. Yep. So good to have Bob Steele on, though, and your monologue was just spot on with some of the problems that we are having here, and I don't know what the solution is.
I know we got to keep. It's just we're in that fight. We're here these next couple months. It's a fight. We got to get the word out, and I truly believe I still have belief in the general public that if they knew the facts, I think that's what it is, John. I don't think the general public knows the facts. It's easy to go out there and protest and not know what governs law enforcement or what governs the actions of some of these officers. I think if they knew the facts, I think it would sway people's decision. I think they would come to the right conclusions. And we talk about Kamala and that ticket. I mean, it is an anti-gun ticket. It's in their own words. Ella, do you have that soundbite from Kamala? I knew I kind of threw it on there for you.
What would you do about the millions of, specifically, assault weapons that are already in circulation? What do you do about those?
Well, there are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program. It's got to be smart. We got to do it the right way. There are 5 million at least. Some estimate as many as 10 million. And we're going to have smart public policy that's about taking those off the streets, but doing it in the right way.
John, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? A mandatory buyback, isn't that otherwise known as confiscation?
Confiscation. And there's been there's like 5 million out there. People go, 5 million. No, there's 28 million of the ARs, not counting the many other forms of firearms that would fall into what they call assault weapons, which is a made-up term. But, I mean, that's the most recent estimate is now. It used to be like 24. Now they're saying that there's about 28 million of these, which, by the way, folks, have been on sale to the public before the military adopted it since January, I think, 4th of 1964. So this amounts to the 60th year that this has been out there without a single problem. It's the policies of the people in charge that are causing the problems. And now it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to buy back 28 million. Look at Canada, a story that I will maybe use next week, but Canada's mandatory buyback program has just absolutely fallen apart. They cannot come up with the money. It is just so unsuccessful, and they don't quite know what to do up there.
It seems to me, John, that, and maybe I could be wrong here, that the overwhelming vast majority of gun owners or owners of the sporting rifles have them legally and never commit a crime. Wouldn't it be easier to say, if you commit a crime with these, the hammer is coming down, you may not see the day of light? Wouldn't that be a simpler path, maybe a cheaper path as well in society? I don't know, call me crazy.
Absolutely. But it doesn't get to their goal of disarming the American people. Seriously, it's like, hey, what are you talking about? That is what they're talking about. The purpose of the Second Amendment wasn't to hunt. Everyone knew you were hunting back then. That's how you got your food. And it wasn't just your home defense. It was to protect the people from government. That is why we have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. When you look at it, that's the purpose. It's not to protect the government from the people. It's to protect the people from the government and maintain our freedom. But they just want to overlook that and go, no, you know what we really want, because these are really weapons of war. Well, guess what? When the Revolutionary War was fought, yep, that's what they were, the weapons of war. We were using the same weapons that the British were using against us, and that's just how it evolved. So, and they're just lying. That's what they're doing. 5 million, some people say even 10 million. There's over 28 million just of one type of firearm, not including any of the rest of them. I mean, 510 million firearms out there, and they're going to do a buyback program, confiscation.
Right.
Really, yeah.
Speaking of firearms, JC, I'm gonna in here wrap up on a good note because I feel like it's been a downer sometimes during the show. But on a good note, we got a couple things right now, packages at the store that are really super good. I can't remember if I talked about them a couple weeks ago or not, but I'm going to talk about them again. 2 packages going on. These are really good if you happen to be in private security or have some security element to your career. But the first one is a Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0. So a newer Smith & Wesson M&P. It's in .40 caliber. The package includes 1 15-round mag and I believe 4 10-round mags, new in the packages still. It includes a duty-type holster. It includes a mag pouch. It includes, John, 100 rounds of ammunition, and that entire package is $479. $479. Wow. Incredible. Now, if 40 is not your thing, we have a similar package in the 45. Smith & Wesson M&P 45s comes with a duty holster, comes with a mag pouch, comes with 3 regular magazines and then 1 extended magazine. Comes with 100 rounds of 45 ACP ammo. $489. These are guns, John, that are in the boxes still. They've certainly been, used before and everything, but certainly very functioning guns. If you're in the market, 2 of these, two specials here that are great. One other thing I want to shout out to that's coming soon. I think the date is going to be beginning of next month. Daniel Defense, John, we haven't talked about this, just came out with a 9mm rifle. They're also coming out with it in a pistol format, which we will have here at the store. They look super neat. They take CZ magazines. They look to be really, really nice if that's something you're in the market for.
Oh, that's great. Daniel Defense makes great stuff, and I'm glad they won their court case they had just recently. So that was a really big deal for them too. So that's where they were charged because someone had used a Daniel Defense gun in Texas, and then they said, well, they're marketing to young people, and this is the whole reason, so we want to sue them, and it got thrown out of court. So there was nothing that came of that. So our friends at Daniel Defense, that's good for them. So yeah, quality firearms.
And they do a very good job to support the men and women in law enforcement as well. We know a lot of our men and women here in the city of Columbus carry Daniel Defenses in their cruisers with them. So them, as well as the FN line of firearms, very good at supporting law enforcement. So, JC, any other final words of wisdom?
Well, just another one that I think we know about the pistol stabilizing braces. What people may not know is there's still a few of these floating around to the circuit courts. So, and just a little 101. I mean, the circuit courts of appeals are the last step before it would go to a Supreme Court, and there's 12 circuits in the United States. And actually, if you consider a federal one, you can say 13. But of these circuit courts, Ohio is in the 6th Circuit Court. Decisions are made, and sometimes some courts say, "Hey, no, this is unconstitutional," and some say it's constitutional. And when they build up, that's when it goes to the Supreme Court. So we have to keep track of these things, and we're hoping that this year, maybe the Supreme Court will actually make a decision on MSRs. So that's our hope.
Definitely. Guys, thanks for spending the last hour with us. Good to be back here live at the studios. In upcoming weeks, we got so much going on with the election coming up. We have a lot of guests coming on the show. Bernie Marino is definitely scheduled. We're hoping to have J.D. Vance on the show and much, much more. Pay attention to the OSU football schedule coming up because that does affect our shows going forward. Stop by and see us here at the store. And as always, guys, let's be careful out there.
Listen on the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, news, talk, and sports radio. Podcasts, too. Download the app. Free never sounded so good.
This is Greg Trzynski from the Original Mattress Factory. Parents, before you buy your student's mattress online, consider this. At OMF, we offer the same convenience, but with major advantages. You can actually try our mattresses before buying, crucial for your student's comfort. You'll know exactly where your mattress comes from, right here in our local factory. By supporting the Original Mattress Factory, you're investing in our community. And here's the kicker. You'll pay less than you would online.
You ready, El?
Quality sleep, local support, and better prices. OriginalMattress.com.
Yep,
when it comes to kitchen and bathroom remodeling, there's only one.
This is Eric from OnTarget. This week, we keep you updated on how politics could affect your right to bear arms, and the Gun of the Week is sponsored by Jackson Egress Windows. Tune in right here Saturday at noon or live from LAPD Studios on Bethel Road.
Because it's Simple Bath and Kitchen.
Tune in tomorrow at noon or live from LAPD Studios on Bethel Road.
You can sell. I'm Jay Jackson.
Tune in today at noon or live from LAPD Studios on Bethel Road.
Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you.
Thank you for your help.
AbacusPays.com, we've created a free policy value calculator so you can find out the worth of your policy in just seconds.